To the cloud. Now we're recording. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Kasper, and Jeremy should also be on screen, and we're going to be showing you how to riff on Rails. This is sort of this technique that I've been working on for a while. Mansa, who's also here, has already seen it, and we collaborated a bunch on something with it too. Jeremy has also tried using it, so that's why we wanted to show what it kind of looks like. And it's a little bit easier to show what it looks like and sort of talk about. So we're going to be doing a little bit of an intro up front of what it is and everything. And also just to be perfectly clear, as this new people are joining, that don't have to be on video, don't have to be on audio. In fact, I think we're actually gonna make it so that people please don't chime in when we're doing the thing. And then afterwards, we'll have a section where we can do Q&A and things. So you just write your questions down for that point, and then we'll have some sort of Q&A at the end, or yeah, just talk more about it. Or if you want to see some things, if you have ideas, you can pitch them then or something. It's just because it's a little bit easier when there's a lot of things flying around. So it's just two people talking essentially. Should we do an intro of ourselves, Jeremy, or are people sort of familiar with who we are, I guess?
I think an intro is nice, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to start then? I'll look
Sure.
here. Let's see.
I'm Jeremy Smith. I'm a longtime Rails developer. Work for myself, running a tiny one-person studio called Hybrid. Let's see, I'm co-host of the Indie Rails podcast, and last year I put on a Ruby conference called Blue Ridge Ruby. So yeah, and this has been fun. I got to see Kasper do this kind of demo, this concept back in December, and then I used it on a client project in January, and it worked really well. And this is very like what I probably would have done before is like sketching on paper to kind of draw things out, but I think I'm liking this technique better. And also the way we've been collaborating past couple of times we've done this sort of pairing on it has been like really valuable, and I'm seeing even the benefits of doing this with a partner as being like really beneficial. So
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm Kasper. I've been doing Rails and Ruby for a while. And now I'm doing some consulting stuff. We're just doing a bunch of stuff for Bullet Train. Let's admit another person. Cool. And some other consulting stuff as well. And then I've just been developing this technique over a while. Jeremy came up with a new to call it riffing. I really liked. I hadn't thought of that before. Before I called like product focused Ruby, which is a little bit wordy and a little bit confusing what it means and whatnot. But it really is the sense of riffing, either doing it on your own or doing with one or more people, I guess. And the point of it is to just, when I'd start a feature somewhere, I used to feel really overwhelmed. And then towards the end of the feature cycle, I feel kind of more anxious, like, what if I did something differently or whatever, but now it's too late to change things. So I figured out a way to sort of like move that up front. And so what I would end up doing was just sketching things out at first, like here's maybe what I want, here's maybe the relationships I want, and sort of managing it up front. And what I felt like that gave me was just a lot more freedom to change my mind. And just like, I don't like the name of this now, and I couldn't see it before I had added this other relationship. And then, so it's a lot more fluidity and back and forth. And then also getting a lot more dexterity or higher fidelity to the conversations you can have with coworkers or even stakeholders like your boss or whatever, what is the business actually wants, and then being able to bring it to them a lot earlier than you would otherwise. Because if you build for 3-4 days and then you figure out, oh, there's something I should have talked about, but now it's already been 3 to 4 days, versus working on a sketch for 40 to 60 minutes and then having those issues pop up for you pretty much immediately, or at least very quickly. Jeremy, I had that experience when we did a test run of this and worked on some spam scores, and we figured out a way that was like, oh, this might not scale, and then we changed it. So we changed the naming pretty quickly and like, oh, that works. And then we ended up having more questions that we would actually take to a stakeholder, and it took us 40 minutes, I think, to sketch that out. I felt really good too. And then we did another test run too, which we recorded. So you can see that it's posted around on social media or whatever on YouTube, where we sketched out, what was it, Spotify, sort of, they have some mixed generator playlists. We'll get into what it looks like in that video, but that's if you want to see another version of what this looks like. Cool. I think isn't that enough for an intro, or anything else we need to cover beforehand? But yeah, I think we'll just get into it. We have one more person here. Yeah, we have an idea for what we want to look at today. So I think we'll just recommend people just like either write your questions down or whatever. Maybe not chat for right now because that's also a bit distracting. And but just yeah, keep yourselves on mute, and then we'll just. I think I'll share my screen, and I think we'll start. Oh, I forgot to put in the. Where was that?
The
Oh, I actually
prompt.
gotta find it. If you have it, somewhere, Jeremy, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I clicking on there? This is what I want to share. Cool. Now share my screen. Empty window. Cool. What there? Seems all right. And soon shift it here. I hope it'll show up how I can emit people. Do I do that? Do I do that? Okay, that doesn't work. Oh, something in chat. There we go. Yep. Copy it in here. And then format a little bit. Let's see, do this there. Okay, yep.
Do you want me
So
to explain the prompt?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So the way we've been doing this past couple of times is we just take a concept for a thing to build that we haven't built before, and that we just want to try the riffing technique on. So this is one that we kind of just written up briefly, but essentially Andy Kroll runs this site, this project, First Ruby Friend, which connects a person learning Ruby with a mentor. And right now, the way he does it is I think he gets a bunch of submissions and then probably has a spreadsheet or something. He's matching people by hand. And he mentioned on the Friendly Show podcast with Adrian and Yarrow that he was thinking about turning this into an app, and maybe even doing that at RailsConf or RubyConf or something like that, like a hack days kind of scenario, to try to start to automate that process of connecting a mentee with a mentor. And so I thought that could be an interesting thing to try to sketch out in terms of like, how would you approach this problem in Rails? Like, how would we try to implement something like that? Not that he has to use that, but just kind of an interesting idea to like start with, and maybe something comes out of this that would be useful to him. So the keys are both mentors and mentees apply into the system, and they have certain aspects about themselves. They have maybe level of experience. They have where they live in the world, the language they speak, other aspects of like gender or ethnicity, things like that, that might have sort of those demographics that might play a part in terms of like connecting people for a few different reasons.
Yeah.
And then there are on the mentee side, there might be like preferences that they would have in terms of, hey, I'd like someone that, maybe I'm underrepresented in tech. I would like to have a mentor that is similar to me or has gone through similar experiences. So I'm not just learning Ruby, but also like how what it's like for them in tech, sort of in my situation as well, that sort of thing. It might also have to do with just the logistical aspects of, hey, this is my time zone, and so I need to find someone that has a good overlap with me, or these are the languages I can speak. I need someone that fits in one of these. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. From what I heard Andrew talking about it before, when he's just been doing it manually, he's just mostly been matching on time zone. So I'm wondering if you should start with that and seeing what that would
Yeah.
kind of look like. It might also
Yeah.
be quite a lot simpler to figure out, essentially.
Sure.
What does it say? Basic geography, local context, and time zone. Context, I'm guessing here is more like a country or something like that. Oh yeah, he was also
Yeah.
trying to match by country, so it's kind of
Mhm.
similar in that sense. I think that might have been his version of getting some of these demographics things, so people are a little bit more close to each other essentially. And yeah, okay. I want to just start with since saying like class mentor or something, maybe class mentee or something. I think that's kind of would be a way to start.
Yeah.
And I was about to do like a belongs to or something, but that doesn't make sense for they're not connected kind of in any way, at least not right
Yeah.
now.
Not at this point.
They'd have a match at some point. Let's check. Um, okay. Yep. Um,
So
uh,
there's a number of things that are going to be captured for both that are the same. There's like name and maybe experience level and country that I live in and things like that. So I wonder, yeah, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
so like
I
a
wonder if we
profile.
should have something like that. That's essentially, and
Okay,
then they
no
can
worries.
have one each essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it's possible to model these so we don't need to have separate classes for mentor and mentee, but I kind of like having them separately. Like there's also a way of potentially, I don't think we should look at authentication, but I was just thinking about it in terms of how would these sign in? They would probably have a
Yeah.
similar, like, you know, like a class user or whatever,
Mhm.
and then they, you know, sign in through that or something.
Yeah.
And then it
So we
could
don't store the
maybe,
information on the user, like some of these
yeah, yeah.
aspects would be
Yeah, I
in the
suppose it's also
profile.
possible for someone who could both be a mentor and a mentee.
I was wondering, like over time, a mentee might turn into a mentor, so you could have the same person that had an instance of both.
Yeah, it's almost now I'm actually wondering if this would be more like the profile is on the user.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you could also potentially have custom profiles for a specific role or something like that. So that's a little bit based on what you're looking for or whatever. So maybe that's actually a little bit, in a way, kind of, I don't know. But I think it might be a good idea to have, for instance, profiles belonging to a user.
Mhm.
So we're always attaching those together. Then maybe that's the way we can find these different relationships.
Okay.
I'm wondering, like, do we want something polymorphic or something on these?
So
Where,
that
no, wait,
like
wait, the other way around. Now I'm trying to think of what the relationship would be for these, uh, the common term for these in a way, but I guess
they're
maybe that's just true of the
profilable or
user.
something. I know that's like
Yeah,
not a good
I
term,
tend
but
to like dislike the able
they're
ones or something
profiled
like that, but
or something.
oh yeah. So I was almost about to say relationship or something, but it's a little bit different. I don't know
Oh,
if
you're
there's
talking
some.
about the profile holds the relationship between the mentor and the mentee? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe, but I'm starting to just dislike that in a way. What is it we're trying to do here? Belongs to profile, belongs to user. Because I feel like there's something about attaching a profile to a user, so a user could have many profiles or something, and then through that have many either mentors or mentee relationships for themselves of what they
Mhm.
are.
Okay.
But I might be getting a little bit too in the weeds, I think.
What do you think would be held on the profile? Like, what would you what
What is it like name, age, I guess, use the gender too, or you know, that's
country
oh
and
yeah,
time
yeah,
zone?
country, time zone.
And those things
So,
probably don't change very often, and
yeah,
you probably don't need more than one of them, even if
maybe
you're a
like
mentor or a mentee, right? They stay the
yeah,
same regardless of whether you're a mentor or a mentee.
yeah, yeah. Although what I'm wondering about is if you have something like desired outcomes, but maybe that's for a later thing of like, I would actually like to, I'm a more of a junior, I'd like to graduate to more of an intermediate thing, potentially towards senior or something. What are you looking for? But I almost
There's
wonder if
something
that would be
about like a
better.
sorry,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was
I
just
was
going to
just
say, but I almost wonder if that was better to model just as like a description field. What are you looking for? And then people can write it out themselves without needing to
right,
have us model all that stuff because we're not necessarily matching based on that.
right.
Um,
There's almost I'm getting a sense of almost like there's a mentor intent and a mentee intent because it's like
mm,
that's separate from the relationship. It's at this point in time, this month, I have the intention of becoming a mentor, and these are the things I'm looking for, or I'm have the intention of becoming a mentee, and I'm looking for a mentor that can do these things. So it's almost like
yeah,
uh, that could happen at different times. Like maybe I have an intent to do it this time and go through the program, have a great experience, want to do it again, but now I'm looking for something slightly different.
yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah,
I
yeah,
wonder if there's like multiple instances of this intent to be a mentee or mentor.
yeah,
So then it's
yeah.
almost
I
like
like that.
a
Yeah,
pairing request or a
yeah,
something like that. They
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
need to be from both sides.
Yeah, so you can find a map. That's interesting too, because now we're going into more like personal stuff versus just the demographics things of almost
Yeah,
like, yeah, what do I intend for this both as maybe a mentee, but also as a mentor?
yeah.
Um, you know, what am
So
I
then the
hoping to,
profile
or
really
what can I
holds that.
provide to someone? Yeah,
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 that profile ends up holding the stuff that stays kind of the same about me, and it doesn't really have to do with what I'm looking for in the kind of pairing relationship that I'm looking for. But
yeah,
then so that can maybe be kind of stabilized on its own,
yeah.
and then
I
we have
think
this other
so.
way of requesting the
Yeah. So
connection.
maybe let's not put skill level here because it's more that intentional almost thing.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
some of these things that might not change very well or
uh-huh,
often. I mean,
right,
age would change and everything, but I guess you could track a birthday or something instead and
yeah, birthday probably,
not
yeah,
have people if they're
birth year or
that's a little bit
something.
like because we're getting into personal details, how much do people want to share? You know, do people even want to share a name? Do they want to share their own gender versus like I would actually request a gender for this other person. So it's almost more like their own request of what am I looking for in a person so they don't give it up for themselves. And I guess there's a
Yeah.
little bit more of a requirement than for mentors to make themselves available, which fits a little bit more with the use case, I think.
Hmm.
That it's if I was joining as a mentor, it's like, well, I have these things and I can do this stuff and I have such and such these details about me. So that people are so it's easy for people to find me and I make myself a little bit more available than perhaps someone who's joining as a mentees has to, because I'm thinking about, you know, if I'm joining as a mentee, it would be a little bit of like I'm not sure of this. I might be less experienced than the mentor or things like that. So like how much do I want to offer to this site or something? It's a little bit like, you know, when is it pertinent, I guess. But yeah.
That might be that's probably a level where I'd want to go back to Andy and get
Yeah.
clarification on something like that. But like, I
Yeah.
wonder if some of those, like the way we model it, may be fine, and then the way we handle the requirements might just be like outside, like the a level above this. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good. Let's continue that then. So what I wonder if we should just well we kind of have an idea for what these things are. What if we just focus on country and time zone right now on
mhm.
this profile? I think that would fit.
Yeah,
So then we wanna be doing like has many profiles in this? I think so. On the users, so they can have many profiles if they're both joining as a mentor or a mentee. Uh I don't want to lock ourselves into like having just one profile on a user because I feel like then we can't. No, wait, we actually do want that. Because the
I was
profile
yeah.
is shared between, yeah, you're right. So
That's the
I almost
case.
wonder if these instead belongs to a user and the user profile is what we're looking at.
Hmm.
And then as many, what do we call that? Like if you're either a mentor, I feel like there's almost like a missing term in terms of what these would be called, like
Yeah, it's
shared.
like it's the instance of me being a mentor in this specific relationship. Not that
Yeah,
I am always one mentor, like, but this time around I will have a mentor relationship, a record that handles like my relationship to this other mentee, this particular
yes, yeah,
mentee.
yeah,
And then the next year I might do it, it's a new cohort. I might be mentor again, but it's not the same instance is what I'm
yeah, yeah,
thinking.
yeah, yeah. I like what you said
So
with cohorts too. That might be interesting.
does this end up just being like a join table where it's the mentor mentee relationship and we're just like connecting the two?
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if you want it to be like polymorphic or something, but
Okay.
I also like the idea of maybe having something like a session or something like that, or like that sense, capturing that sense of a prolonged relationship or like or time relationship where we talk about we go through a cycle in the program. Maybe it's
Yeah.
like a program round, and
Actually,
you
that
have
probably
either.
needs to be recorded in the system, like when this
Yeah,
relationship was established. So if someone is saying like, "Hey, I want to do this again," Andy is going to look and say like, "Well, they look like they're already in a mentor relationship. I don't know that it's done." We need almost like a status of like when it's closed or like
yeah,
brought
yeah,
to a
yeah.
completion or
This
something
could
like
have
that.
like a start of that and to that or something. At least that's what I'm wondering about right now. If we have a round or something like that, the idea of
If
that
he
scope
establishes
or
the
something.
round like, "Hey, we're now opened for
Yeah, yeah.
new ones." Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's almost like I wonder if we should maybe have a namespace that's actually cohort and then a
Mhm.
round for a particular thing. So the cohort is when it runs from we start a new cycle of the program, runs
Uh-huh.
from here, runs to that, and the round can actually be a participant or be included within that cohort or something. I don't know if we
How are
need
they different? Tell me a little bit more about that.
uh, well, I think round is to between a specific mentor mentee or one to more or something.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
about to sketch out whether, so let's see if we sketch that out. Program, cohort. So now I'm wondering if we put this thing here. So this is for the
Mhm.
general program when you set it up and figure it out. And then this has many rounds of each individual you know, instance of these one-to-ones or whatever, where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we've matched this to this person and so forth.
I think the rounds maybe
But
is throwing me a little bit. Like when I
yeah,
think round,
yeah,
I keep thinking it's synonymous with cohort
yeah, you're
because
right.
people
Yeah,
say, "Oh, it's this cohort is this round."
yeah,
Um, I don't know. I
Maybe
get
it's a
what you're
group.
saying. But then yeah, grouping, or in that sense, like maybe even I wonder if there's ever a case where you probably don't need to think about this, but I do wonder if there's ever a case where a mentor takes on two mentees at a time, or like
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
create a single grouping, of within this round, and maybe it's I don't know, maybe there's some advantages to not just one person with another.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I was wondering about. I was almost wondering if you'd rather have the it's getting that in from the start and
yeah,
maybe not presenting it in the UI, but just having the
right.
modeling ready for it. So
It
you
makes it
only
more
ever pick one
flexible,
in the UI, but it makes it easier to do. I think there's a
especially
blog
if,
post
if
around
there's
it.
ever
Some,
just like a
yeah,
one-off, like if there's ever a one-off, even if he always says it this way, but someone says, but can we make an exception? I have a friend that wants to do this with me, and he wants to be able to record it in the system that way, that's actually how it happened. Then it's kind of like built in from the start.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that will work. And then yeah, the UI can just always show one or just admit one instantly and just make it one-to-one for starters. Let's see. Cool. So I think we're going off of these things. So what do we want to connect to the user here? Cohort, I guess, but it's almost like groups. So I
Yeah.
wonder if we want has many cohorts and then has many groups through those cohorts. And so that's the way we found through cohort how they're belonging within there. And within here, they can have a specific relationship of either being a mentor or mentee. I wonder,
Okay. So it
but
seems like the relationship is from user is through group right now. I would have
right.
guessed it was house many groups, but then it might have many cohorts through groups. Am I wrong about that?
Oh, could be. I'm not quite sure. It might be, yeah, it might be the other way around. So then we can see how many, however many cohorts a user has participated in. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Groups. Okay. I
I
still don't
guess
know how
now
we're
I'm wondering
connecting
what
these.
mentor and mentee represent. Like what do they mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it's almost like in here, what we're really caring about is participants, and then a specific user in here is either a mentor or mentee.
Hmm. Does that
So I'm
end up just
almost,
being a role then? Like
yeah,
rather
I'm
than
wondering at least if you want something like a cohort and then participant, and then it has maybe participant, and it would just have a role essentially or
Mhm.
something like that. That's either a user or, I mean,
Mentor or mentee?
mentor or mentee. And then this kind of has many participants.
Hmm.
And then in here, if we do, I think this actually could be just an
Mm. Yeah.
literal. It's the place where I can't type. Let's see here, here. And then in here, and then if you do an enum, we get this automatically where you could do has many participants dot mentor participant mentee if you want to list just the ones or split them out or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that could work. And then maybe we don't need these then.
I think, well, I'm wondering if we still
Or
need some way to capture the intent of someone that wants to be a mentor or mentee. Like this represents the final like connection of um we've now like found the person that matches, like the person that's a mentor matches with the person that's a mentee. Now we've represented that in the system with groups and participants, but we need some way to like initially have these users request to become a mentor or mentee. Um, and so I was wondering if like that's like, and I don't know that mentor and mentee is the right class names for that. Maybe it is. It's more like a request or a
yeah, or an intent
permission
or
or
something. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what if we look at that? What if we just call it, I was about to say just request, but I don't think that's a good, what if we do program? Uh, request or something. Or I do like the word intent though. I feel like that captures it pretty
Mm-hmm.
well of what it is you want to get out of
Mm-hmm.
this. Um, intent request or something,
Uh-huh.
or participating intent or request or something.
Might be helpful
Uh,
just to look at what's inside that before we
yeah, yeah.
like
Yeah,
I'm
so what do I have
thinking
in here? I think some description and then maybe those profile details you're looking for. like a
I'm also thinking it
desired
makes sense to
shape.
it belongs to the cohort.
Yeah,
Like if we publish a new cohort that's upcoming, people can make a intent request for that cohort, and then they're going to be matched up with a group
yeah.
for
Yeah,
that
because then you could
cohort.
have a bundle of all those on a page somewhere when Andy has to pick it and figure out whatever who to match where and where. And you can have a list of all the ones that I want to be a mentor. And maybe you could even have for multiple people that like, I want to be both a mentor, but I also want to join as a mentee. And then you can
Yeah,
submit both requests at the same time. The system would
yeah,
allow you for that.
right.
In this particular cohort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that would work. Yeah, belongs to cohort. Yeah, and then you could sit and figure out which one. So if you pick a specific profile, mentee profile, and then I'm just trying to imagine the UI essentially where you could have a list of everything like, okay, I gotta match up all these things with these, and then I can have a list of all the mentees, click on the next one, get a UI, and then see all the potential mentors or like, or ranked essentially by some of the matching we're gonna be doing. Um, like an ordered list and see, would this be a fit, would this not be a fit, and then read the description for the mentee, the intent description, and then see the same thing for the mentor, and then maybe see if you can match them up that way, essentially.
Hmm.
There might also be a way to sort by country first, so to speed it up a little bit, like, oh, these are all the things or whatever.
Right.
Um, to match people up. Cool.
In the intent request, I'm also thinking like Rosen mentioned in the comments that one of the things was optional. Like some of the things in the intent, or maybe all of the things, end up being optional. But maybe you need to be able to specify like I need someone that is, like a mentor that speaks English,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I'm requesting that my mentor is a woman or something like that.
yeah,
Like where others might just be optional. Like if they
yeah, yeah,
speak English, French, or Dutch, that any one of those would be fine. Or
yeah.
they could
Yeah,
be from any one of these three
which
time
things is like
zones.
non-negotiable, or which things am I more like that doesn't matter as much to me, or like I can allow these, like you just said with language. Yeah,
Yeah. And I don't know if there's like a sense of like requirements and then preferences, and then everything else falls off.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. Okay. Yeah, so that would almost look like, I wonder if we want, it's interesting, we just did the Spotify mix generator playlist things where we ended up with having this, what did we end up calling it? It was like a mix category or a track category or something like that, that could
Uh-huh.
actually hold almost like a little bit of like a key value store in a way. But I'm almost
Yeah.
wondering if we want something similar for this, where it's almost like or maybe it's a profile detail or something that you're kind of requesting on or something, where it's like, I want to have this particular detail here, and then you can have with included in this intent request, you can then have a specific detail you choose that has a specific key value, and then make it required or not. So make it
Yeah.
required by whether or not it's bundled within here, and then we can
Uh-huh.
save the required or optional part within there versus having it within the detail.
Does it make sense then
But
to allow for that thing, like for not a Boolean for required, but maybe like an enum where it's required, preferred, or optional?
yeah, yeah, I think that could work. Let's see. But this is like, how do we then?
Or maybe it doesn't even matter if it's like it's either required or preferred, or you're not even listing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was trying to see, how do we make a join table between these things? Program, maybe it has a, I don't know how to make that. What to name that? Let's see. I'm just gonna write it like this. So it belongs to detail, but it also belongs to the
It could just
intent
be
request.
request details.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. Let's see. That's a specific detail, and it has the belongs to the intent request. I kind of want to sort this. And you said request detail,
Yeah.
and then this would then have an enum of, what is it, like what do we call that?
Required, preferred.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's kind or something. Let's see.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Kind, required, preferred. I think it'll work
Yeah.
to capture that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Because anything else, you
Uh,
don't really even need to list. It's just like you're listing things that would be
yeah, those are just like up to whatever you want. Instead, it's like,
yeah, either the definites that it's an like it can't work if it doesn't match the requirements, but then the preferred also helps with sorting and matching, if there
Yeah,
are things you can be flexible on.
yeah. Cool. Yeah, because you probably want to list the required ones first and then the preferred into some sort of maybe just sorted by name or whatever. Maybe that just has like a key or something or whatever. Let's see, profile detail, and then we have a key, for instance, it could be like country, and then it could be well, it could just be Denmark, for instance.
Mhm.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Countries, again, where we have some sort of structure. A way to like identify these specific details do you want to allow in the system.
Mhm.
Mm, maybe, I'm not sure. But let's see. Cool. Okay, I'm wondering where to take this next assessment because now we've got a bunch of different things sketched out. Or-
Yeah, I like what I think I like what we've got up here. Like, so when you join, you're creating a user and setting up a profile, and that stuff kind of stays as is. As soon as you join, whether you're mentor or mentee, that's
Yeah,
probably just it's mostly static at that point.
yeah,
But then you can request to join a cohort by creating an intent request. Um, so Andy publishes a new cohort that's starting in a certain time frame, and it gets announced. People come in, make their intent request. They put in the request details that are either required or preferred for them. I want to be a
yeah.
mentor. This is a requirement for me. This would be a preference for me. I want to be a mentee. This is a requirement for me. This is a preference for me. And then now we've captured all those. And at this point, oh yeah,
And then having a
right,
description of like what it is I actually want to get out of this or things like that. There could probably be more of
yeah,
these if you want a specific bucket for
yeah,
like what are you looking for in a mentor and how do you like work, however much you want to break that down essentially. But that could
yeah.
be another version of this. Uh,
So that also might be helpful if you turn this into, hey, I don't want to do this manually and read all the things myself. It could turn into something where it was like people sort of self match or something. The description could be used by Andy or somebody else to do the matching by hand. It could also turn into a system that would allow mentors to find a mentee that like they say, oh, that's perfect. I could totally, help them with
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they match the requirements for me, but also I really like the description of what they share, and I think I could be a good fit for that. So you could kind of like morph the system that way in the
Yeah,
future
yeah.
if you needed to.
Yeah, that would also be interesting because if we expose that to mentors, the system could just use those required details to be like, these
Yeah,
are non-negotiable. We don't even
it
show it
immediately
to the
filters
mentor, but
down.
we just
Yeah,
like auto match a potential mentor that satisfies those requirements that the mentee had without never
yeah,
needing to show it to the mentor potentially.
yeah. That's interesting.
So it kind of
I
saves
think when I was
priority.
originally thinking about this, my thought was, oh, this is gonna be fully automated. There won't be
Right.
any, it's like
Yeah.
it's just gonna like
Yeah.
hit a button one day and it'll just automatically run and find all
Yeah.
the right matches or whatever. But in this sense, like there is more than just simple requirements and preferences and
Yeah.
trying to like sort by those. There's also
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
the
because I'm
very
I'm
human
wondering how much
aspect
you
of
want to, because since this is so much about mentorship and making sure people
Mhm.
get paired up with the right person in a way
Yeah,
and doing something better than what can just be done manually. I do wonder if you want something that just has that human element. And I
yeah,
like
I
where we're
like that.
going with some of this intent stuff that it's no, I have things I also want beyond just characteristics that I have or what I would, even though I would really like it for a mentor to have share the same things or whatever. But yeah, I was just like, I have things I want out of this, or what am I looking for help with, or whatever. And somebody's just like, I really want to learn more about AWS, and then the mentor is like,
Right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Then it's kind of a waste in a way, in
No,
that
I like
sense.
that. I
So,
like that.
and then either Andy could go in and help with some of the sorting, or maybe he could make up like a initial kind of just checking things out and seeing like, oh, this person could go with this with these 3 4 mentors or whatever, and then do it that way and then send them off like almost like having requests and seeing what someone can find a match or whatever, or maybe even have a call with some of them to be like, hey, I would like to schedule a call to see we're actually a fit. I like what you put in your intent or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe that kind of thing.
If that happens, I wonder if there's a state for the group which is like trialing or um
Yeah.
do you know what I'm
Because so
saying? Like,
I was a part of a program last year, I think, and it was like just like, hey, you got this mentor assigned and everything, which makes sense to make it that way. But I do wonder if it would be cool, and Rose put this into chat too, or of once they're matched, if mentor mentees want to accept or reject a match, which is where I think
yeah,
it'd be interesting to maybe just have an initial call with someone. Say you
yeah,
get like, if I'm joining as a mentor and then I get options to, or maybe if I'm joining as a mentee and then like, oh, I get these 3 potential mentors. Maybe you can already rule someone out based on the intent description, but maybe you could then say like, hey, I'd actually be curious to see how we actually talk together and whether or not we like each other or whatnot.
that's
You
probably
know,
valuable
all,
for the system as well
yeah,
to capture the attempts to connect. And then, like, if
yeah,
certain things don't happen, maybe that comes in as feedback to the system. So Andy can say, oh, we learned something this round, from like this person like pointed out that, like when they met this first time, like there was an aspect that hadn't, been considered. And now we've included that as a new type of detail to bring up in your initial intent request or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
So then
yeah.
it would
Like,
be
let's
good
say, for
to
instance, if we didn't, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, so then it would be good to capture the initial connection of a grouping, and then like a state of whether it continues on from that or if it just like sort of like is shut down at that point, or I don't know what to call
Dwindles or withers or whatever you want to,
it.
or
Yeah.
just ends early, I guess.
Uh,
What is it, like a guard clause? It returned early.
yeah, right.
Um, yeah, I think that makes sense too.
Does that still
Um,
fit with a group then? Do you think a group is the best? Should the group then have a state, or does it need to be
oh,
another thing before it becomes a group? Like it's
yeah, because I most want to group to me sounds like that's when you have accepted something, or just like you're
set.
in it,
Yeah.
you're kind of in it for the long haul, and of course people can still drop out and whatever, but you've kind of committed in a way. Um, Committed to being 1 to 2 more people or whatever in this group setting, and just we're gonna do these 6 calls. I think it is six
Right.
calls for 30 minutes unless he
Okay.
changes the program. But um yeah.
So then what holds this initial relationship, this initial matching that needs to be trialed or tested out, or I don't know what we
I
call
wonder
it.
if that's the intent request or something, because what I'm imagining is that would also be both on either mentor or mentees. So if I'm a mentor, I can also submit one of these. I want to be a mentor. I would like to, and then it becomes a group at one point when both sides accept. Uh, I guess, but we haven't captured that in a way. Let's see.
So maybe it's almost like a proposal. Like we're like one side or the other proposes, hey, what if we establish this group?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't Proposal sounds like I'm
yeah. It
starting
sounds
to
a little
think
bit like
like in dating terms or something. I don't want
yeah,
to
yeah,
like
exactly. It
that,
sounds a little
but part of it is like this matching of like here are the profiles and like who's going to initiate, and then who's going to like, do we want to carry this forward from an initial meeting, that sort of
yeah.
thing. So there's like um
And also, how much do we want to capture of some of all this nitty-gritty stuff? Because what I'm wondering about is maybe people just get sent an email like, here's a potential mentor match. You get an
uh-huh.
email here. Here's what they wrote that they would like to, or like why they think they would be a good fit for you, or something like that. And then they
Accept or
have each
not.
other's emails, and then they could
Oh,
also, set up like, do you want to talk with them or whatever? They're open to that, or do you just want to be like, hey, sorry, this is not for me? And it would be good if it wasn't any like pressure to reply or anything like that, because that might be a little, but yeah, um, maybe something like that. Although I do
if you did
think,
it that way and it turned out it was an email that got sent out to two people that was going to try to match them into a group, what would you call that thing? What gets captured? um
yeah, good question.
is it a matching? Is it a match?
I do like, it's funny we're getting into almost this like dating sounding term, but I think that means there's something here. It just
Yeah.
needs to be a little bit more businessy, otherwise it feels a
Right.
little bit weird.
Yeah. Right.
Um, But I do think that's a sign of something that's here where you are trying to relate to someone or find a match, someone you can agree with, or I was almost thinking like agreement or something like that, or relating to someone, but it gets kind of tricky.
Yeah. A grouping, a pairing.
Pairing, I do like pairing. And that could
Uh,
be between multiple people too, if we want to
yeah.
still continue that thing down. Yeah, because that's almost like, yeah, pairing, I think that actually fits in a way. Let's see. Yeah. Um, cool. I'm wondering if you need to step back out a bit or see what we're at with some of this stuff, because we're getting into all the little matching things here, which is almost going a little bit away from what we said already in the description, which is fine, but just more a sense
Mhm.
of like, oh, it seems like there's a lot more of wanting to actually give a human touch. And the program is also called First Ruby Friend. So I feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff there that's actually really humanity focused and wanting to make
Yeah.
sure you can find a match that's really hopefully helpful to you, because of course nobody's perfect and everything, and can't make
Right.
this system perfect either or anything, and no, no harm, no
Yeah.
foul in that sense. Um,
That makes sense.
but I do like that sense of trying to capture more just like giving it a very humane process that lets you say what you want. And I do like the idea of having these preferences or requirements. Is like, I don't want to be a part of this program at all if it doesn't satisfy this requirement, which makes
Mhm.
sense. It's just like, no, I just want to make sure that we can, so I don't even have to worry about filtering that down or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
I know I'm not interested if this doesn't happen. Oh, there's also interest.
Okay. Yeah,
That's a
that's
name.
true.
That's a little bit like pairing interest, something like that. Uh, oh, it's a comment here too. Something to connection might be better than match or something. Connection is a little bit of a loaded term because we're doing with active record, but I do like that. Um,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Huh.
mm, mm, I wonder if I actually wonder if we're kind of hitting a natural break point now of like taking it as far as we can and almost needing a break to it or something, and maybe let
Yeah.
more people come in a way.
I'm definitely feeling that. Like there's
Yeah,
like a I don't quite know where to go
yeah, exactly.
here.
Yeah,
I'm liking
but
a lot
it's
of like how to represent the people in the system and how to represent the groups when they're finally matched together.
yeah,
The piece that I
yeah.
don't know is like what's that?
Yeah, because I feel like it's indicating that we don't know how we actually want that initial rounds or like voting,
Yeah.
whatever. Again, now I'm just throwing more terms out, which also is another clue. So this is another thing that I think is great about technique is the sense of like, we don't know what to do now, but that's a sign of needing more confirmation from the stakeholders, and that we figured something out of like how to actually honor more of that human element that we didn't know before, because it seems like the program actually really wants that. Again, it's called First Ruby Friend. If
Right.
the goal is also to have, I think friend is meant loosely, it's not necessarily friend for life, but it could be.
Yeah.
But it's more of that like really Ruby friendly vibe and everything, and wanting to make sure that somebody actually gets care and concern for them. So it's not just a system where you just like throw yourself in there and like you don't hear anything back. It seems like from what I know from Andy, he really wants to make sure people have a good experience overall.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I wonder if no, I can still share my screen, but yeah, so what should we do next steps? But yeah, so next step will kind of be ask Andy what he thinks of some of this stuff, or what he like as he's a stakeholder, or does all this human stuff even matter at all, or is he just like I was like, no, I don't care at all. I don't think he would say that, but like, yeah. Um, cool. Yeah. And then, but yeah, this would be a great place to just take a break from it and be like, I don't know what the names of these things are, but we're throwing some stuff out about like either voting or having rounds, or yeah, intent requests is what we have here, connection or match pairing, that kind of thing. Which I think is interesting because it's always starting to come together in terms of some sort of naming here. It just hasn't
Yeah.
popped yet. Um, cool. Yeah, I wonder if we should open up to other people and see what they think. Either if you want to put it in the chat, or if you want to come on video, you're more than welcome to. But
Yeah, that'd be cool.
does this make sense at all, or what do you think so far? If anybody has, I think there's a way to raise your hand in Zoom or something like that if you want to. I think it'll pop you up. Or do I need to do something else just to be able to see every one of you? Oh, I didn't do what I wanted there. How do I find a Zoom window that actually while still sharing my screen? Do I just kind of page through everybody here? Oh, that almost worked. kind of. I don't see anybody. Okay. Well, I have no idea. Maybe put it in chat if you want to say something or not. Otherwise, cool. Sweet. But yeah, this is kind of what the process looks like of just talking things out and keep playing around with it. We didn't get into the nitty-gritty of like has many groups, dependent destroy, whatever, how you want all that nitty-gritty stuff. Because right now we're just trying to focus on keeping this like on Twitter here, we call it like a fat marker sketch. Have you ever seen people sketch out UIs with like a really thick marker or something to just keep it overall to what the shapes of things are in a way? So you don't get too stuck in all the details of how do we actually make all this stuff happen. But trying to find some naming that'll then give you more naming ideas down the line, which I like with having this sense of a program and a cohort. And I tend to just namespace. Oh, okay, did the thumbs up. Thanks, laptop. Program cohort and group and participants, so we can start scoping things a little bit more and having a sense of what do these relate to. It's not quite, if you ever heard of pack work where people do a giant Rails app and try to split it out and all these parts. In some ways, I think it's nice to start a little bit closer to some of that if you can, but it's also a little bit finicky in a way. And of course, we're all just in one file. So we have it. I mean, I've saved it, but I'm not worrying about Git right now. I'm not worrying about TTDing all these things because I want to get an overhead of what this looks like. See here, Rose is asking on what basis do we match mentor and mentees? Did we cover that? We ended up deciding to skip that for now because I'm feeling a little bit tired in a way. So like at least needing a break from talking to someone else. So ironically, we didn't get to the main chunk of it because we ended up exposing a bunch of different things before that so we could get to that, which is cool because that's the other part of this technique too, is it's more about finding a conversation and figuring out, oh, we didn't know that, or we didn't realize we didn't know that. So there's something that's kind of missing in the spec that we found that we didn't want to take to someone who is like a stakeholder. And what do you actually want out of this? And we found it in, I have no idea what time it took us to write this for 40, 50 minutes or something. Versus if we started building something out or maybe even use TDD, which is perfectly fine. I just find that I get lost in the weeds of all the process stuff or like, oh, I got to make sure I git commit or I got to make sure I do this stuff. And then I just lose track of everything. Versus here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, around like 10 different models that we're kind of focusing on how to relate to each other. And getting a little bit of a picture of and just moving, we're touching on them each a little bit, but then moving on to the next part so we can kind of find a sense of the optic graph in a way. Like what is this app actually connected and how is it actually working together and collaborating with all these different optics, and where do we want to, do you want this to just be an attribute? Do we want this to just be a full-scale model so we can have an association we can point to and maybe replace it with something else? Yeah. And then, yeah, we started out with having this like mentor mentee, but then we kind of went away from that over to mentor mentee on this participant level. So
I
that's
was
the other
not
thing of
expecting
like,
that. That was not
no,
a
me
that was kind of
neither.
a
And
surprise. Yeah, to see
yeah,
it
yeah,
come about that way.
yeah, I thought we would have kept this mentor mentee, but we kind of moved away from that in a way of maybe it just needs to just be here, which we wouldn't have gotten if we just started. Oh, I know for sure we're going to need a mentor and we're going to need a mentee.
Yeah.
Let's write the migrations. Let's migrate it. But then what's happened for me sometimes is when I do that way, I end up being like, oh, sunk cost. I don't want to change this anymore. Like it could have been on a mentor mentee, but I don't want to do that right now. We've already like it's 2 days into building this project or whatever. I don't want to do that now or rip it out or whatever. Versus touching on every little thing and trying to trace things from a little bit of a higher level, essentially. And then getting a bunch of naming feedback already. How do we like intent requests, request detail? Does this make sense? Or does this profile detail or program like that sense of the code is sort of always starting to speak to us in a way, and which I kind of like.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, but I do there's kind of an irony in some of this, like that Rose pointed out in the chat of like we didn't get to that part, but that's actually good because it's like it's highlighting where do we want to take this as sort of the next step. And sometimes for what I've done in the past too is either taking a break from a session like this and then coming back to it later or sleeping on it and in the morning like, oh, maybe I have more ideas, or I tend to take a break when I'm hitting like diminishing returns with someone. So I'm not getting as fast feedback as I did before. So maybe that's a sign I need to do something else or something I think a little bit differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a point
Uh
where you start spinning your wheels, like
yeah.
second guessing yourself a lot. Like there you get out of flow suddenly. It's like, oh, is that really right? And then you switch it
Yeah.
back to the way it was before, and then back to the way you had it, and then I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's like it's at that point going away and coming back seems to like work better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was interesting when we did the if you've seen the video or if you want to watch the video we did for the Spotify thing, that was like full speed ahead essentially. It took a little bit to get started, which you can see in the video. It takes us like 5-10 minutes to sort of get into it. But then once we're off there, we're kind of flying back and forth with different things. And so that's the other part of this that's kind of a little bit, it's live, it's kind of a little bit unpredictable. So there's a little bit of risk there essentially, but I find it's usually good to try to do one of these before I do anything else to start to see if I can discover a little bit of design feedback before just like going straight into like implementing or things like that. So I can have a little bit of sense of what are the names here? What are we working with? What's the domain around this? And of course we went completely greenfield here, but it could have been for a slightly smaller feature within an existing context in an existing app. But here we kind of had to start from scratch, but that's okay to see.
Yeah, and I think the place that we're
There's
at like
yeah,
just highlights the unknowns that would have to be kind of sussed out with Andy. Like, okay, how do you envision this, the connection, the matching to work? Because like that's, I think right now that's like the place where we could try to grind right now would be on like, well, if you wanted to do it this way, we could do it this way, and if you wanted to do it this way, we could create this uh modeling or whatever. But without like knowing more details, it's all like just guessing, where the rest of this feels pretty solid. Like it feels really solid, like the way users would be represented and the way groups would be represented. But that matching piece, I feel like there's just too much missing for
yeah,
um
yeah.
without getting feedback from client feedback, business feedback.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I always find group to be a little bit like, what does we mean here or something. So that might be my other thing. So like, it always
Mm-hmm.
sounds a little bit like too abstract in a way of like, what does a group contain in a way? Like, and of course it's scoped here, so that's kind of better. But I still always find a little bit, what is this like or it could be meeting or whatever. I don't know. But yeah,
Could be friendship.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like kind of nice in a way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I wonder if there's anything else. So the other thing that I tend to do sometimes with this stuff, because we're just kind of relying on knowing how belongs to and has many works in this case. And the other one we didn't get that much into implementation either because we're trying to kind of stay out of it. So, a lot of this in some ways is I feel like a lot of the content that's out there for Ruby is so focused on business logic and how do you do all that stuff. What I feel like gets missed out is all the organization you do beforehand. Sometimes it feels like people start with business logic and then they're just like coding away and finding things out and then emerging a little bit there. But I tend to want things that are also has this perspective of being top down as well as bottom up. So we're continuing looking here and trying to see, can we make a design out of this that's coming at it from a little bit of that higher level top down structure, but then also listening to what the code is telling us from that bottom up kind of part. Like, oh, this wouldn't actually work or whatever, which requires knowing the API somewhat. But once you know it, something like enum, you can just write it out. Like I have a really good sense of what this would do, for instance. So what I tend to do a lot for this kind of stuff and leveling up in that sense is just opening up a Ruby console, figuring out a way to run some of this stuff. And poking around it there. Like for instance, learning a new method from enumerable, like array partition, for instance. How do I run that? How do I what kind of inputs do I give it? What does it return and all that stuff? I'm playing around with that. What does it happen if I do this within the block or that kind of stuff? Or sometimes just reading through what all the methods in enumerable and trying to again open up a console, see what it works. What does it work like with a hash? What does it work like with an array or maybe a set or something like that? And playing around with these things because once you kind of get a feel for them, and I don't want to do it in a test because that's a little bit different. That's a little bit more removed. But if you do it immediately in a console, it gives it a different feel where you start to having a feel for how something works essentially. And then once you have that, you can kind of use it in a sketch like this, for instance. I kind of know what this line does. Past many groups. It's kind of this is a benefit of abstractions and concepts and stuff like that too. So that's the other part. If you want to try this out more, for instance, but you're finding that it might be a little bit difficult to keep going in a way. And again, like we did here, you're gonna hit diminishing returns at one point where it's just like, oh, I just lost steam on something or whatever. But which is part of it too. But sometimes you might need to know some of the APIs a little bit more to be able to go a little bit further. That you could have gotten more out of a session, for instance, if you knew a little bit more. But that's the way to do it, essentially, that I've done. It's just kind of open up a console, get a feel for it, try to run some of these things and see what it looks like. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? So you get a feel for how a method works or something is combined in that sense. Beyond just like writing it out and then running a test a little bit later, and you can get feedback that way too. But it's just a different, it's just a different feel. Okay,
The place I'd be looking
cool.
for to test that out in the console in this example is down where we had the request details. Like that's the piece I want to do, is like figure out how to like if I wanted to exercise any part of this to like feel how it felt, like would be like to take a bunch of intent requests with request details and see how it feels to like filter them down by required and then sorting by preferred or something like that, to try to see
Yeah,
like what collection do I get out of that? Does that
yeah,
feel
yeah, yeah,
right when I'm like querying that?
yeah, 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 absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that would take a little more setup to do that, but you can do that. Yeah. Um, cool. Anybody else got any questions or things? Otherwise, we'll figure out more things to say. But yeah. I don't know if I can see anybody here. Let's see. There's something in chat here. Got Sharp things there. Okay, cool. Nice to see you, Jacob. Cool. And we'll post a recording too, of course. We're recording. So, yeah.
Should we do another one, or what do you think?
Yeah, we could try looking at another one. Yeah. Let's see. I have here on that window. This out of the way. Do this. File. Which one are we doing? Do you know? Or you had there was the meeting polls one you had. There was the other one with let's see here. That was cool. Okay, cool. See you, Alexander.
What looks good?
There's also the RSS reader. Maybe that might be a little bit easier in a way because I feel like I need something that's this got into a lot of very different details.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Let's do channel copy.
What if would you want to try to take more feedback, like maybe halfway through or something on this round?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just
Yeah.
see if people have more ideas in the moment.
Yeah. Sam in the chat here is asking, language is going, will we get another session for first Ruby friend? I'd like to hear Andy's thoughts on all this. I mean, I suppose we could. We didn't even think of that. I don't think Andy knows anything about any of
No,
this
this
at
is
all.
entirely hypothetical.
Yeah,
Just saw him talking
exactly. Yeah.
about like, oh, that'd be interesting. We should try that.
Yeah. So we don't know yet, but maybe that's actually a good idea to try. We can see if we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be worth his job. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, so nothing planned, but that might be good. Makes sense, assume as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that might be good if we can make something happen there. Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Close the chat. This is set CED. I mean, you can see what it's called in here where it still says the updating at the bottom. I don't know if it shows my cursor right in the screen sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, fair enough. Yeah, CED down here.
It's definitely the prettiest editor I've ever used.
My only concern is that when we search, right, and in the dark mode, when we search for the files, it doesn't show up. I mean, the text, highlighted text, just get plain into the dark mode.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
like
it's hard to see the highlighting.
in
Yes,
search. In search. I was
Search?
noticing that too.
I'm using the VS Code mode, and I just do Command P, right, and then it will give me the file source. Yeah,
Okay.
this one.
Ah,
So if we change to other dark mode theme, right? If we say if you type for friend there, FRI,
Mhm.
yeah, that highlighted part, it
oh,
gets
the
blends.
FRI is hard to see. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good in this one, but in other themes, it's bad.
Ah, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, it is open source, so you could actually it's been open source now, so you could actually
If I
submit
knew
something like that.
if I knew Rust,
Yeah. Let's see.
Manu is asking a question if we've talked about how to run this in the Rails console, or like with the we didn't
No, I
have
don't think we did. We can actually
Yeah.
see that somewhere. Where do we have that? It's a good question because we did it for
put
this
in the scratch.
thing. We had
Yeah.
this scratch file. Let's see here.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Could have saved it. So yeah, what you do is essentially, I have a bundler set up here that just goes into this very. Oh, I can assume just put all your images, video down below. Okay, I didn't know that snapped to the bottom. That's cool. Where's the gem file? We just have Rails and SQLite 3 in there, and in the scratch thing we did, you can require bundler setup to require them, and then you got to require active record separately. But what you do is you establish a connection to an in-memory database for SQLite 3. And then you could just have a schema defined right here that looks like that, which is kind of what you put into your migration file. You can give it that, the same things you'd see in that thing. Set up an application record just to make it look more like a Rails app in case we were to like copy just things over to a real Rails app. It can inherit from application record like that. And then we did a bunch of different Ruby things in here, but let's see if we can show you that. So what we can do is Ruby scratch RB. Did we do where it? We actually haven't run this before. Let's see what happens if we just run it, because we did at first we tried to make it run it and it didn't do something there. Oh, okay, we did a application controller.
Oh
Let's
yeah, I
just
think that
fix
was
that.
just a
Yeah. Controller base. Do that and see if it will accept before it. Now I actually don't want your head. Sorry. How do I snap? Okay, there we go. It snapped. Cool. Thanks, Sue. Action controller base. Okay, and then we got to require action controller. Yeah. We got it working for a while and then we stopped doing that because it sort of slowed us down. So, but now we're back to it again.
I think that was actually one of the takeaways. Doing it this way, I thought it was going to be like,
There
oh,
we
this
go.
will make it even better. But for the sketching, it was almost like it did interrupt flow.
We got too focused on making it run and work and everything.
Implementation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not like the
It's-
level you want to be working at if you're thinking about naming and relationships and stuff like that. But like once
Yeah.
you dive down the next level to like, will this even work? Can we query things the way we want to? That's when this ends up being helpful.
Yeah.
Because
And
then
there's a
you
little bit
still
of
don't have to run a bunch of migrations and like
Yeah.
do this whole app setup to do this.
Yeah. So like for instance here, now we've got this, we're just connected to an in-memory database, so I can create here. Can I not? It used to work. Let's see. Oh, content. Okay, we need another attribute. Fair enough. Oh, yeah. Cool. So that works. And then we can do post at first, for instance. Post at first, right? Returns the same thing. But then if we exit and then go back in here and then just do post for, all the things. Post at first, then there's nothing in there. So we kind of can start from scratch in that sense. So what I did at the bottom here was just doing binding.irb, which opens up the console. It just fires up an IRB session. And then we got all the constants in here, so we can start playing around with things. Let's see, there's a bunch of stuff here. Let me just comment on it. Let's see here. Yeah, like post and user and so forth. And we could also do that at the bottom here, for instance. I don't actually know if a post will a local variable just work in IRB? Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know.
Title first. Otherwise, it might need to be an instance variable. Let's see, content. Let's do that. Exit here and then go back, and I'm just running Ruby straight up because we've got bundle set up to require from the gem file we have in the directory. That's kind of all it's need. Oh, well, I guess you would need to bundle exec, maybe. I'm not sure. Okay. Does it work? Okay, we have a post, so it's within the local scope. Yeah. So that's sort of a way to do it. And then there's a little bit more hacks if you want to do maybe like in a controller or something like that. But yeah, you could try some of the Ruby code out as well. I think I shared all this code in a gist. I could update that with the new stuff here.
Yeah, what's nice
Cool,
at
but
this level is exercising the interfaces to like see how they feel, because you can end up writing a lot of those from controllers or whatever else. So that is nice at this level. You're sort of past the level of naming and relationships down to like exercising the interfaces and seeing how that feels.
I'm just end up battling active record. Can't run out of user ID. Okay, post needs that. Okay, fair enough. That's we didn't get all that stuff running before we did that. So, but yeah, I can show what it looks like. So see that. What is it? References, user ID, false, I guess. Index true. I think it does an index, but still. And does it not? Oh, now I need it. Oh, now I need to create a post with that. That's interesting. Oh, so now I need to have a
User with the
user create, and then we can do user here, and then do that. I think that'll work. Ooh. Cool. But yeah, so there's a little bit of fiddling and learning how to do some of that. User ID. Ah, I did the wrong thing here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So almost there. So post on user on SP. Oh, and then we need to mark it up here. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Yada yada. And there we go. Okay, so user, we got post. User post. Yeah. So it's a little bit fiddly sometimes, or you kind of know what you're doing. We forgot how to like, or we didn't plan on that in this one, so we're going back and forth. It would be a little bit easier if we just finished the sketch originally and then went in and did some of the stuff. We were knowing what to do a little bit quicker. This was kind of rediscovering it again, but yeah. Cool. But yeah,
That's all the
there's some
stuff that happens
changes.
in sketching that doesn't really matter because you know you can do it. It's like, oh, what's the syntax for that? Who cares? Like the bigger
Yeah.
deal is like that you knew you could model the relationships the right way.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of what I tend to look for is like, does this break the design? Because if I have a comma right here, that technically would break the code because it's invalid syntax, but that doesn't invalidate our overall design. So the way to fix that is just to fix the syntax there, and then the design would be okay. But if it's design invalidating, like we've seen in the when we did the first Ruby friend, it's like, oh, we want to change this a little bit, or we maybe want to change how mentor mentees are represented. That's the feedback to listen to. If we miss a comma here, there, whatever, we can always fix it later. Let's see. Yeah, binding.rb is just if you do a Ruby console, that's just RB, interactive Ruby. That's the same thing. And Pry has a little bit more features, but binding.rb is just built into Ruby, so it's way easier to execute. But yeah, exactly. It opens up the interactive console RB, the one you do fire off from the console like that. So paste. Yeah, you don't have to copy paste to RB, and you can do that pretty much anywhere in Ruby. Yeah, so you can have it set up. Exactly. Cool. Yeah, it's a little fiddly, but I thought about making a gym to make some of these things nicer. I just haven't got to that. The sketching part. Cool. Should we try the RSS one, or is there other things we want to look at?
Yeah, and I'm
Let's see
wondering
if we
if maybe if somebody else wants to do the pairing with you, and
could do
they
that
can just
too.
chime in if there are details about the aims, but I was
Yeah,
wondering
so
if somebody
Jeremy's
else
kind of the
wanted to-
stakeholder in this thing. He came up with some of
Yeah.
these ideas for things. So if anybody wants to try or would like to either drive or have me drive or something like that,
Anyone want to volunteer?
if you want to. Oh, what happened there? Okay. I don't see anything. Of course, if anybody's doing anything, I can only see like.
I could try, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna be good, but
That's okay. Yeah,
It's
Monster,
all
you
right.
can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Do you have the problem statement, Jeremy? I can copy
Yeah,
paste it in
let me
here.
share that. Where was that? Not a ton to this one here. I might have to fill in some details. So
Yep.
Yeah, you got that. So we're gonna build an RSS feed reader. So a user in the system would find a bunch of RSS feeds that they want to subscribe to, and then we need some way of letting them read the posts that come out of those feeds, be able to know which ones they've already read, so we can see which ones are new when they come in, maybe be able to favorite posts and that sort of thing. And maybe we, if that's too simple, maybe we get into some more complex issues or whatever, but that's the gist of it, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think what's also interesting about this one is I don't think we're going to contend with like how to parse RSS and atom feeds. We're kind of going to assume that we know how to do that because we want to find all the, we want to find all the stuff around that. How do we actually get to that place on where we either listen for that or, let people subscribe to these feeds or have a representation of the data around all the technical stuff of figuring out how to actually run that stuff. So we don't run run into all this like the what I run into what we just did when trying to get things working in the console. It's like I was like back and forth, like, oh, I missed this part, I missed this part. Because that kind of stops you from going a little bit faster or getting a little bit more of a higher picture of what is it we're doing here or something. And then once we got more of that, hopefully the scaffolding or skeleton around it figured out, then it's way easier to program these other things. And then like program the parsing itself of these feeds or however we want to structure that. Like, I wonder if we want to, because this is focused on the user side of things, so users can subscribe and I get a list of posts they can read and favorite. Yeah, so I almost wonder if we don't want to contend with the like the back office thing of actually how often do we refresh these feeds or something. We do probably we'll get into a little bit of that to see to have an idea for how do you connect these things. But yeah. Cool. I'm wondering how we want to do this. Man, so do you want to try driving it or let's see?
I mean, we could try. I mean, if it's bad, we can change road.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But that's no worries. And this like the whole point of this is also just to try things out and like, oh, I got an idea for this. Let me say that, and then keep trying and keep tuning and tweaking and so forth. So, there isn't really a wrong answer. And if there is a wrong answer, it will get revealed pretty quickly. And then you can just change it, and then nobody's the wiser, like because you didn't commit it to Git or like pushed it, so nobody could see that part. Cool. Do you want to be on set or something? Because it has a built-in feature where you could type too if you want to. Probably need to
Okay.
download that or something. It's I should probably share a link to that anyway. Let's see. Because it has a feature that's kind of okay for that. You won't be able to see well, you can see that in Zoom or something. I wonder if, well, now I'm confused. Or maybe I drive and then you collaborate or something. That probably is a
Yeah, I
little bit
mean,
easier
yeah,
actually.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Check things out. Yeah, let's try that. So what I'm wondering about is almost having a class called feed or something. Maybe again, we
yeah.
want something like a class called user, which has some sense of, by the way, another thing I've done sometimes before is if you just import terms you've used before, like a user, it tends to have a lot of loaded baggage with it. So sometimes I might have just done, I'm actually making a user, or am I just making like a user invite, for instance, if there's an invite to a system or something. So I'm not focused on bringing all this all baggage for me. And then sometimes afterwards, it's like, oh, now I can actually rename this back to maybe a user or something like that. And then all the stuff I learned from having given it a different name this time, I can then get those details for my user. So I've learned more than I knew before if I just had gone with what I'm used to, for instance. But I do think in this case, it makes sense to have it a user also has like device setup or whatever. And then I'm wondering if you want to have, and of course,
Yes.
Matt, you can just chime in well, again, subscriptions is also kind of a loaded term, but I do think it makes sense for this case. At least I don't have a better association name right now, so I'm just gonna go with that one. And then belongs to, well, that's interesting because now I think we're getting to the first part of what this could look like. Do we want to belong to one user or should a subscription somehow be shared? Because I'm wondering about if in the case of having an RSS feed, I guess, see, now we're getting into how do we actually find these things in the back office thing of like, how does the system, go in and it has a knowledge of a feed somewhere and then goes in and refreshes that. And then I'm wondering about, do we then want subscriptions for that to be, I actually don't think we want that. I think the feed would manage all that stuff. And then a subscription goes to a specific feed. And then there's a little bit of like, maybe we should get into what happens if a company, that does or a person that does the podcast is like, or RSS, it's not podcast, but RSS, like just, deletes it. And then the feed is just gone. I guess you'd figure out from the HTTP and when you're trying to like pull from the feed list. Yeah, the RSS, we don't know yet where the source of the RSS is coming from, Rose, but well, I think we'll figure that out. It's coming somewhere from this feed, essentially. Oh yeah, it could also be that users type in their own things. Isn't that kind of how you do it in an RSS reader? You get a feed from somewhere and then you type it into like a text field and then you like put it in there.
So it would be something like as many feeds, something like that.
Potentially, but what I'm wondering about is because, oh yeah, there's a little bit whether or not it's like a publicly shared feed or if it's like a password protected feed. Because I think something like Patreon or whatever could have like a personal RSS feed for you, for me, for instance. and then you can't share that. But I do think there's something cool if it's the same URL without a password on, then it means it's publicly available. Like for instance, I'm subscribing to a newspaper somewhere, they have an RSS feed. Well, the system only really needs to refresh that once. It shouldn't do that for every user because they get all the same content.
Yeah.
So I think there's something there to establish that kind of whether or not it's like, I'm almost want something here that's like personal, which then is whether or not it has like password details on it or something like that. And then whether or not it's public, what's when it's not personal stuff like yeah. Let's see what else you want to do. So I wonder if subscription then is from a user to a specific feed. And our subscription is just a join table between these things. As many subscriptions, yeah, subscription can't belong to many users. It's once per feed. It's not too many feeds. I think this is kind of it. And then this feed has like a URL on it or something. Maybe it has those like password details on it too. But I don't know what they are, so I'm just like shelving that for a little bit later. It might be a password, it might have more things to it. And then do we want to encrypt that? We probably want to do that, but yeah. Cool. But this is also the case where I'm starting to get into where the sketching stuff works well when you know what it is you're kind of working with or have a sense of it, or we can reuse a lot of known parts. Where you get into where it gets tougher is when you get into all this R&D stuff, like research and development. Oh, I don't know about podcasts. I don't know, or like I keep thinking of podcast, but even though it also works with RSS, so it kind of fits. Well, these feeds, how did password protection work there or whatever? So there's some question about that and whether or not we would even want to support private feeds for the initial version, for instance. So then now you know that, and you could have a higher fidelity conversation with a stakeholder and take it to them and be like, do you actually even want to support that for like a version 1 or whatever? I do like keeping a little bit in here so as a reminder to have that conversation again if we were to take it further. But let's see, makes sense so far. Mesa, do you want to do you have an idea for where you want to take it next, or I can keep going too if you want to?
I mean, what would be the most interesting parts to model? I mean,
Yeah. Let's see here to get a list of posts. So I wonder if the next part is just having an idea of a post somewhere from. I'm almost wondering if that's like a feed. I kind of want to call it like a feed item or maybe feed post or something. So then somewhere we'd have that sense of like we refresh a feed, we pull from somewhere, and then we generate posts from that. We don't necessarily have to get into how that looks like, but something like that. And then a subscription then is to a feed. So you can see, I think this would actually need to belongs. No, wait. How does a feed? Does it have any idea of subscriptions on it? Maybe it has many subscriptions, I think. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So then you can also do like a subscriber count or things like that, I guess. I suppose you could also do it has many users through subscriptions. And then on the other side, I think you do want it has many feeds through users. Same here. Yeah, I don't know either, man. I was just reading the thing in the chat. Oh, chatting there. Let's see. I'm just going to read the chat there. The feed URL can be used to differentiate, i.e. if it is personal, it would be unique. Does it need to be marked as public? Never done on a feed reader. That's true. You don't. I think the feed reader could just know that based on whether or not there's a password on it or if it's kind of unique. The URL is unique in a way, because I think what we could do is have a unique index on the URL. Because I suppose you could also share the URL with someone else, and then like, well, we can just, I guess we're like what is like people do with Netflix passwords or whatever. Like we're just letting people share them for right now. I mean, if there's a company that's really wanting to make sure, oh, you can't absolutely do that, but there's still something about figuring out like the public reusing that. So we only have one feed for those things, and then we can always, and this would scale to that, like having one-to-many feeds for a specific like site or whatever, again, or a Patreon specific URL for one thing, or
maybe we could think about the difference between Atom feed and RSS feed, and how we can abstract all of this?
I would actually not do that at all because I think that's too nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
This might somehow be a feed might somehow have it could have a different thing that does that, like what would that be, like it belongs to, or it could just be a Ruby object, like a fetcher or something like that, that then based on the URL figures out I'm an RSS fetcher or I'm an Atom fetcher. We don't actually need to care about that at all.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would kind of do, based on the URL, for instance. Something like that. Without getting too nitty-gritty into that, because then we're getting into all the business and logic details.
Okay. So maybe we can think about the favorites part. Or
Yeah,
can
yeah.
we
Let's look at that because I think we're almost there in a way. So we have many subscriptions, so we have all these feeds here, and then to that we're gonna get all these posts. So what I'm wondering about is whether or not we want to have that like really simple list view of these posts, for instance, where just, oh, a new episode of this came out, a new article of this thing came out. How do we actually display all those things? So I wonder if that's almost like as many, what is it, like posts through feeds in a way. And
Yeah.
then being able to like sort those by, let's see. So if we have, let's just see, we have a user timelines controller. Again, I'm doing the application controller thing, so great. But if we do try to put this in a console, let's see, show a timeline. Oh, it could also be user post control or something like that. I do like the idea of a timeline though. So here I think this would just be, if you assume we have a current user, I didn't get posts or something. Post start or created at or something. Yeah. But this is interesting too, because now we're getting to the place where a post is shared within the feed, and it's general within the feed. So there's one canonical like post, but then what do you do for these like user details of like a favorite, or what else
Yeah.
can you do with it? I suppose you could also delete it and we'd want to track that somewhere. So you don't show that again, like, oh, I don't want this, like accept or reject. I think there's a podcast app called Kasper or something that lets you like swipe between, I don't want this, I want this, I want this, I don't want this. So there's almost a need to have like a mask on top of like because I do like the sense of having canonical posts, which makes sense for the back office things of fetching all these things and capturing that stuff. But then how do we do it for those user details or whatever? So I think what we want to do is actually when a new post gets added, we want to go in and create something for a user. So tying to them, so they have a detail, and then that's the thing that we present in the view actually. I wonder if that could just be user, something like it's tough to share names between things, use a timeline post or something. But as a way to kind of, so it belongs to like I guess that would be but then we're doing post again or something, but marking, placement, like something like that maybe. Belongs to post and belongs to user. And then in here, this could then have the detail of stuff you can interact with on a specific thing. You could maybe, it could be favorited or not, or it could be kind of a state of being deleted or something. I suppose you could do something like favorited at, or what is deleted at, or something you want to do like soft deletes.
Mhm.
Maybe downloaded at. If it's like an item that you can download, like an audio file or something, or again, like a podcast or maybe a video even or something. If you want to track that state or something. So, but now I'm wondering if you want to have that as separate. How do we want to capture that? Because I don't like the idea of putting these as like just at. Because it kind of can be in different states. I mean, it could still be deleted and be favorited. Because it's like well, oh, that's interesting because that deleted at could both be on the placement itself, but it could also be on like if you have that download, but that's kind of like almost a separate thing to manage the download. So now I'm wondering if you want something like I'm just assuming it just has one download. And then the download there could track whether or not it's stored, deleted, what's the process of it, like a progress counter or whatever. It's like a large file or something like that. Which I think would be optional, because not everything has that. What do you think about some of this, Miss? Do you does it make sense, or other things should change or something?
So far, yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. I suppose I almost want this to be like, I want to have both an accepted at and maybe a rejected at. There's also read. A lot of apps have like read notification or whatever. Like I've read this, I've read counters things. Oh, let's see, I haven't looked at the chat at all. Let's see. Oh yeah, I didn't see the part of reading or not. Let's see if we can get into some of that. Definite requirement, difference between timeline and feed. Let's see, feed is RSS feed, timeline is a list of posts from all your subscriptions. Yep. That's it. What about user timeline item? Yeah. Let's see, I actually want that. I don't have much knowledge in our system. I'm confused. So what's coming from the subscription is the feed. Let's see here. I don't have much knowledge in our system. I'm a little confused. So whatever coming from the subscription is the feed. Timeline is collection of all the feeds. Yeah, that's it. So what you do is, I keep thinking about a podcast because it's mostly where I use RSS. But if you have, I'm subscribing to 3 different podcasts, and then they keep putting out new episodes, and then I have this feed, kind of like you see on like social media, like Mastodon or Twitter or whatever, would have all these posts in your timeline, and you can see, oh, this one is out here. I want to download that and listen to that, or I want to actually don't want to listen to that at all. And you get to have that collected feed between them, like a timeline, for instance. But it's true, there's a little bit of a mismatch between what's a feed and what's a timeline. There's a little bit of there that's kind of, in a way, kind of iffy, but yeah. Let's see. I also do like, instead of placement, just having the item like shout it out in the comments. And so here we'd almost want to list out these items instead. So now I wonder if we don't want to have these posts here, then has many. Now we're getting to something that we did the other time too, Jeremy, having a timeline. Because now I'm wanting to have just a timeline, and on there it has many items. I'm still not quite. Sometimes I like doing that. In the Spotify example we did in the video I linked in the chat earlier, we ended up with having a user and a history, and then having that history have many. I think it was listens, because you could listen to tracks, I think, and then listens to something like that. But now we just have a has one essentially. This is kind of purely a primary key to just shelve things over to the side a little bit. It's more of an intuition thing. I'm not quite sure why, but just having something that's a little bit more scoped in a way. So here, now this kind of makes more sense. What if we have use of timelines items controller? No, wait, I do want to like have it be posted that. So now we have a timeline, and then we have items that we can then order by created at, I think is what we want. I can never remember if this is descending or ascending, but again, that's figure outable. It would be like a one change if it's the wrong order when we run it. So we don't have to worry about it right now. Oh, and then items here.
So how would you build the action to say select a post as a favorite and so on? So
Yeah,
the action, the
let's
controller and so
see
on.
that. Let's see if we can do. Now we're pretending we're within the view.
Yeah.
So let's see. We just have I think it's like a button to what's it, like favorite item path or something like that. And it will probably be to the item. Yeah, I think it'll work for authorization. Let's see. And it would probably be a method that would be like a pass or something. No, it would be a create. Let's just do that. I think that's simpler. Let's see what's in chat. Yeah, each user will only have one timeline right now, in the current design. It's more of a gut thing of why I'm doing the user timeline that's connected back to the user. It's not necessarily meant to be that there's multiple timelines. I suppose you could model that, but it's more just I don't want everything to just be on user. And sometimes there could be a little bit more features that come along later down the line, and it's nice to have it shelved out off to the side, stuff that we don't know yet. might be more details we want just on a timeline that's not quite on the user. But if you don't have that timeline set up, like this extra model, you'll end up just throwing that stuff on the user without having a space for it. So at least I've seen it before, which is, and then user starts glomming. At least that's it's a little bit particular just to being on the user, because users tend to be like collect every single attribute in the system or every single like detail, because it has to touch so many things, which makes sense. So I feel like almost any case you can, I want to separate things out or have a slight like delegator or something like that that's connected to it in a way. They could start putting these like pertinent details over there versus, because otherwise users start gonna collect everything, even though it feels a little bit premature here, but yeah, we're just using it for the organization thing and having the extra namespace essentially. It's not like it's just gonna, right now the user timeline is just gonna contain the primary key so we can map the associations around. That's kind of it, but it's more of a gut thing. Okay, let's go back to favorites. Let's see. So now what I think I do is having use the time. I don't think I do maybe just the favorites in a way. Because then we could also have a show action. Favorite show,
Yeah.
let's see, create. Let me someone else here, create, right here. And then, right, then, oh, this is not, I should have copied that. Let's do this. And then we have user.favorite maybe. Oh, we can do, hold on. I confused myself with all the stuff that's going on. Let's see, favorite. And then we'd need some sort of idea of an item in here or something. So we have the item we're passing in. Favorite item, that's interesting. Oh, maybe it's actually items favorites controller. I think that's what I would do. Item, wait. And see, now I can never remember the route head was. Routes are what I have the most trouble with in Rails. So I'm gonna assume this is the right one, but it might be the wrong one. So let's pretend we have that, and then we could pretend we have the item found somewhere. I mean, I guess so, or we could just do it here. I think that's actually okay. Let's see, current user dot timeline dot items defined, and we do params. ID, find is gonna raise if there's nothing there, and then just it'll automatically convert it into a not found, like 404 page, which I kind of like, so I don't have to do authorization things because that completely ruins my brain. I don't know about anybody else, but so now we have a way to favorite the item. Let's see what that looks like. We're up in the user again. Just writing out favorite, see if we hit anything that invalidates the design. We have an item here. I do wonder, because at first we said on the item, I want that to be
Yeah,
favorite or something.
timestamp.
But I'm now wondering if I actually want something that's more like a user favorite or something. That's in a connection to that item.
Mm.
I think that's kind of more what I would want. So now this belongs to user and it belongs to that, I mean, timeline item or item. I think I just call it an item here. Let's see. So now we don't have favorites here. We have it here. And where were we? If you post user timeline, user favorite. There we go. Yeah, so this would create that. And then I think we could have nope. That's me favorites. I think something like that. And then this is favorites stuff create. Basically just creating from the item because we're within the user, so we're already connected. You know, it's just a nicer way of writing. Unfavorite. I'm getting to a place where I can't spell unfavor. And now I just read favorite so many times that I forgot how it's spelled. So I think we do this and then destroy by. And we probably, once we get to database design, want to have like a unique index on user to item. So you can't favorite more, like you can't have it stored in a record as like have favorites for the same thing twice or something. It's just make sure that it's one thing. So in a way, it might almost be, what is it, like create or find by? Or find or create by or find or create, whatever it is. So make sure you don't like hit the uniqueness create. I think this is good enough for now, but there's something about uniqueness here, which this helps highlight. Cool. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay,
To
cool.
me.
But yeah, this is kind of how I do it. And then if you want to look at like reading things, that's a little bit, I think in a way it's almost similar to what we just did for favorites. And I suppose there's also a version of this, and this is another thing I do with these sketches too, is like continue with where we're going for right now. But now I feel like there's something that's starting to happen where if you try to sketch out what readings look like and favorite, because I'm starting to wonder if favorites and readings are almost like an action on an item. So I'm wondering if those could be modeled in a way that's a little bit more generic and whether or not that would look good. But yes, I want to sketch out readings and then take a pause and then come back to this and see what it would look like if you do it the more generic way. I do wonder if we want to see readings, even though it's kind of similar. How we want to do that, because here's where we're laying out the. I actually want to move this up a bit because it's connected to the timelines. So this is like app use time user timelines show HTML be. That's what it would be, or flex, whatever it is when we use right. I suppose there's also, if you want to do like use the favorited, or it just has a favorite on this item, you do welcome to unfavorite. And then some people sometimes do toggle things, which is also interesting when I want to do that. So method delete. So you then route it to, instead of create, you route it to destroy. And I'm not bothering with the routing helpers because I kind of know how this works. It's pretty much just going to be, I think we're going to have some like resources users and then resources. I think we might even want to have a scope module time or actually namespace. I think namespace timeline do resources favorites, something like that. So if I know it's roughly what that's going to be, I tend not to bother writing them to not get too stuck in the weeds. But if I'm unsure of it, I'll write it out to just think about it a little bit more. But anyway, here would be, yeah, I'm just going to duplicate this for now and then go into user dot on again, I've forgotten how favorite is spelled. Like that, and then there'll probably be a response to somewhere, maybe a server stream, something like that, depending on what we look like for the UI. But we don't have to think about it right now. This is more just to demonstrate whether or not the modeling holds up when we get to the controller layer. Oh, by the way, it's another tip or tangent. Sometimes when I work on stuff in a Rails context, it becomes, or you end up staring at that like blank sketch file and it's like, what is that I write or whatever. So sometimes what I actually do is tend to start just writing out a controller because it's so boilerplate heavy. You have a show, create, or destroy. So I'm just trying to think of how to find some way to find a resource. And then it's either one of those like index, new, create, show, update, edit, destroy, or, the 7 ones that you kind of use. But that helps me get going a little bit faster. And then all I have to think about is kind of like a class name. And then you can start seeing, now I have an idea for the controller, what's it going to take for parameters from review, and then how's it going to interact with a sorter model. And you can kind of get, like if you've written these things out first, it's kind of like controller, maybe it would have been a little bit too much, but you get a lot of things for free around how the modeling would look like and so forth. We didn't necessarily need to write out favorite to know roughly how it would kind of work, even though it's fairly simple. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew kind of what we're going for here. So I might not even write out the favorites stuff from the user part. I might have just left it be with this part for now, because like, oh, I kind of know that we found all the skeletons around it. So now the business logic itself could be, we found a place of where to place it and how to connect these things. If that makes sense. Cool. What else are we looking for? Do you want to see readings? What time do we have? Let's see. You're back. Adding a separate model for favorites mean that each time timeline is shown, you will need to join with that table to show the status. Similarly, for showing with the favorites, you will need to join the items. Each reduce in +1s, that's true. What are we gaining anything by having a separate controller? Makes sense. A favorite can be treated as a resource cleanly. That's true. I'm not quite sure. Yeah. Yeah, because there's something to do with like, how do we fetch this timeline and build it up from these items as well? Because then we do have to join with things like a favorite or things like that, or maybe like a read marker or something like that, which is true. Which again is another point towards looking at, is there a way to design this that's more generic and abstract, like these sense of an item or something like that? I do think there's something to having a sense of like a mask on top of that, like feed post we had. Yeah. I almost wonder if it makes sense to sketch out the read notification. Yeah, it's the current user section. I'll show what current looks like. It's kind of this. Oh, current kind of looks like this. Active support. But what you want to look up is active support current attributes, and it has an example on this that looks like this. But it's just a way to store request details that you then can use elsewhere. Previously you might have seen something like if you use device, you might have seen current user or something. I tend to like this version a little bit more because it's a little bit clearer where it pops a little bit more than just current. If it's just used current user, I find it a little bit like, where's the current stuff coming from? But if it's coming from current, I find that it's a little bit easier to oh, there we are. It's just using that. You know, some people dislike it because you could also use this in models and so forth. So it can get a little bit hairy with it, but I tend to like it a little bit more because it's a little clear of like, oh, this is what I'm actually expecting to be set here. Yep, yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, but yeah, you can look up active support current attributes and I will show you and to see more details for it. But yeah, that's what it is. Cool. I think we might actually be running out of the time that I booked for this stuff. I wonder if we're gonna do a roundup instead. I don't think we got to the readings part. I could put the code of this up in a gist as well so people can have it if you want to try and see what that would look like or you want to continue further with it. But yeah. Cool. But yeah, good point that Manu raised in the chat of whether or not we want to have favorites be a separate item. But that's also again where we're now seeing it in the sketch part. We didn't go through and write out the controller, whatever. We didn't do, I mean, we did it pretty closely to what it would look like, but it's pretty easy to just go like, oh yeah, I don't like that, and then just delete it. And without having, oh, I have to find a file and then maybe also delete the test file or whatever, or I overcommitted to Git or like that wouldn't be the worst part to clean this up. But it's just a little bit extra inertia versus here. It's kind of, well, it's just a sketch file. This is all it's meant to do. It's just give me feedback. And then when it doesn't make sense anymore, away it goes, you know. And I've done that in the past before, sometimes where I see this a little bit more as almost programming my mental model directly or trying to have a conversation with that as close as possible. And so sometimes I've just taken the file that I've just written and just like deleted everything. I didn't like that, but I still have some of the terms around it and, you know, take a break from it or sleep on it and come back to it and see what it looks like. Or Jeremy pointed out, you could also commit a version you have to Git and then start. Once you have, like, if you have all these things and maybe you had done what it looks like with reading part 2 of having a markers read and all that stuff, then you could commit that and then maybe try scratching some of the things and being like, okay, what would it look like now if we have some of this more generic thing or something? Let's see, I actually can't admit it. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, so cool.
You want to see if there are any questions at this
Yeah,
point,
sounds good.
or just even general comments about the technique?
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
There's one thing I want to say. Would it be easier to most of the time to start with the controller? Because I feel like once you have the abstraction of the for this example, the favorites controller, I feel like it's getting way easier to understand how things should work, because as soon as you have the favorites controller, you know that you have a rough idea of, or you can list favorites, or you can create favorites, delete, and so on. And I feel like it's way easier to think about the whole thing rather than starting with the model.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah, I tend to do that. I tend to just start with a controller, but for whatever reason, in the past ones that we've done with Jeremy here, I just ended up starting with the model for whatever reason. But I do tend to start with a controller because it touches so many things and you can say a lot really quickly. Like if you'd start out with like, but sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to figure out what the name is, but it's also pretty quick to change. But you can get a ton of stuff already. This says a ton of stuff about the design, whatever. But yeah,
I suspect that it
But-
probably depends on you and the thing to be the problems that
Exactly.
you're
Yeah,
working
that's the
on,
other
like,
thing. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
are the
Sometimes it feels a little
unknowns?
bit. Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's more clear what the models are, and you need to know how they're being accessed, or how you're hit, like what the queries look like, or something like that. So like,
Or yeah, go ahead.
may just
Yeah.
depend on where your biggest questions are, or where, like, I guess with this technique, you can kind of feel around the edges. You start with the classes and you're like, I can't start with the active record. I need to switch to controllers. It's still really easy to do that, but I feel like it's almost more like an intuition thing. I think that's maybe
Yes.
where it feels like this is like the almost the artsy side of like engineering. Like you're just like, it's the sketching, riffing, artistic, like loose kind of, it's not precise. It's not supposed to be. You're like really just trying to feel it. And so I think there is like, you're letting your gut kind of guide you to like, oh, I don't know. And when you're like, then you're listening to that I don't know to kind of move around the edges and figure out like, what if I came at it from this angle? Okay, now I see my way in.
Yeah. You're kind of looking for where things start clicking, or where either names or things just start popping. Like, oh, I know this now and how this fits in, and so forth. To get sort of this like fast feedback, essentially, faster than you would otherwise, and then you can still have that overview of all these things and just scroll back and forth and like touch lightly on all these things, but then also touch all of them. So you're kind of like, oh, and now I can kind of see how these things fit together, versus being what's the term, like you can't see the forest for all the trees or something like that. It's kind of a little bit like, oh, we want to make sure we still see the forest, even as we're looking at each particular tree. I want a pine tree here, I want a birch tree here, whatever, and then make my forest in that sense. But then it's like, oh, pines can't grow there. Now I need to change or something. Like, if I hope the analogy makes sense, but it's like, oh, I put these trees in a creek. That doesn't work. But that's the design feedback that's coming back from you in a way. We try to, I don't know, build a forest essentially. But yeah, true. I do tend to start with controllers just because it touches on so many things, and you get that sense of. And sometimes in the past, if there's been part of the specifications been like a fat marker sketch or something, where it has an idea for the UI, or I know where it slots in a little bit more to the rest of the system. It's like, oh, I know where to start, and sometimes I've just coded out the view like I just did here, to get a sense for the implementation details of how the stuff is wired up. So we might have started there and then go a little bit back to control, seeing, oh, now I have an idea for what the params are going to be, what the interaction is going to be like, because I have an idea for the UI, or I can at least picture it a little bit. And you can kind of go back. Yeah, it is kind of playing it by ear, going back and forth between all these things. But yeah, I hear in the control part. Yeah, cool.
I think in the last example with the first Ruby friend, we probably started more on the model side because I'm guessing because we didn't know how Andy might be, how the matching was going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
we don't have a vision for what that interface looked like. So we don't have a controller to work with because we didn't know how that might happen. It could have been completely automated. It could be him just like looking at two and like picking like two to match together. And then we came up with this other idea of like sending sort of pre-vetted possibilities out to people to select themselves. And each one of those could have had very different controller, like design or something like, or no controller at all. Maybe it's all just done in a background job to do like automated matching or something like that.
Yep.
So on that side, I think it made sense to start on the modeling, but it also highlighted the fact that we didn't know what that matching would look like, and that's part of why we got roadblocked there, because we
Yes,
didn't know
exactly.
what it was going to be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which was kind of interesting, that it sort of revealed itself in that sense. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're kind of feeling it out. We're starting where it seems to make sense to start, and then going from there. Keep tweaking, keep refining, keep coming up with new things, and delving out, seeing what it looks like when we had this piece here. Well, now that reveals something about this other piece, and it was interesting to see how the more we tried to build up in the Ruby friend example, it was just like, oh, what is the UI actually going to be here? Because we don't really know, and I still think all the modeling we did still gives us a lot of flexibility around how we want to display things in the view. We can even experiment with 2 different versions displaying things, and the modeling would actually allow for that. It give us a lot of flexibility without becoming too abstract or too arcane in a way where it's like, I don't understand any of these things. I mean, there's definitely some name things we could look at, but yeah, cool. Anybody else? Anything else they want to say, or takeaways you had, or something like that? You got like 5-10 minutes. Chat. Yeah, I'll post them. I'll post the code snippets. Been posting on gists and stuff, but I probably want to do one for all these ones we did. We have these like over here in the files, like the scratch or RSS and mix and so forth. No, I don't have any favorite books for learning this type of thing because I don't know know of anybody else that's kind of doing it. So this is kind of that's what this is. I don't have a I thought I was gonna write something about it at one point. It's like, oh, that's actually way too difficult because it's just way easier to show it and then people can kind of pick up some of these things from osmosis more than it's kind of something to show. Domain-driven development is in some ways some of it, but in terms of like how do you piece some of these things together, but yeah, doing it in this kind of ad hoc by feel way, I don't think I've seen anybody else really talk about or write about or something. So we're kind of doing it this way because this is the way I know how to like try to show it and try to get a sense of it. So yeah. Cool.
I wonder how particular this is also to something that Rails does. What like you could do well with Rails that you might not be able to do as well with something else. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Just like
Yeah,
Ruby
that's
and
my thought
Rails
too, because it's Ruby kind of reads like pseudocode, so this is just taking advantage of that.
feels like,
Like,
it. Yeah, it feels like
yeah.
pseudocode.
Someone's saying DDD is great in Elixir. Cool. I that's cool. Yeah. I'm not too well versed in we're not really planning any more sessions right now. I think this is sort of one for right now, and then we'll see how it kind of went and if people liked it and whatnot. But I do think the idea someone had to talk to Andy about what we've written out and whether or not he liked it or just like hates it, that might be really interesting. But that's more of like talking with someone who's a stakeholder who's also a developer. That might be kind of interesting. Cool, thank you, Samuel. That's great. Yeah, I hope people use it or try it out, or it takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of that like developing that sense of intuition. And of course that can also be wrong, but then you can work on calibrating it a little bit more and trying things out. And but at the very least, I hope this give you more either confidence or a sense of more dexterity to conversations you can have either with coworkers or with like stakeholders or whatever. What is you actually want here for this part? Or it can reveal a lot really quickly. Like, oh, here's where I fell down over here, and like, how do we actually make this happen in that sense? Versus having to build for a week or two and then like, and then being hit with the very same question there, except you just have a ton more things that you put down, and now you have to either rip them up or whatever. And like, I don't really want to do that. So hopefully the idea is that you can find a way to make better quality designs, I guess a little bit faster in a way, at least getting more feedback faster, so you can ship things that are hopefully a bit more well named, a little bit more well put together, because you can kind of see the forest for the trees in that sense. And what was the other thing? Hopefully with less technical depth too, because you're not doing that thing where you fall into it at the end of it, like, oh, I didn't see that until week 2, and now we have 1 week left to ship this thing, and now I just of course no guarantees, but at least the idea is to surface a lot of that feedback pretty early to make the rest of the feature cycle more of just like pretty straight up implementation work, because you've done all the thinking kind of really quickly by just listening and going back and forth really quickly. It's speed isn't necessarily the most important part, but it's just more like that, not thinking too much about it, see what pops out, and then it's like Jeremy said, it's more of an art kind of thing almost, of like if what you would like if you're creative or writing a song or something, like, oh, this is interesting, let me see what this sounds, and now I'm moving over here and that sounds different, and that's telling me something, and back and forth and trying things that hopefully gives you a place that's not like diminishing returns, but but as long as it keeps giving you feedback. And then as we saw in both these cases, kind of like they sort of reach a natural stopping point where like either you're a little bit tired or you're just like, I'm not getting as much feedback now. So then you stop doing it, versus like, oh no, I just gotta keep sketching for 3 days or whatever. As soon as you start not telling you anymore, it's like that is not the best fit essentially. So yeah, it's all about developing that sense of what do I think this, or playing it by ear is what I keep saying. But yeah. Cool. Yeah. Let me know how it goes, by the way, if any of you try it or what your experiences are with it. If you end up trying it out, Samuel, for your side project there. Yeah, it kind of feels like prototyping, wireframing, and visual design. Exactly. That's the goal of it. Yeah. And then taking advantage of, again, that Ruby is so, or Rails has so many of these abstractions in a way that you can kind of write these things out, and it wouldn't take that long to get things working. Sometimes what I do when I'm stuck on a sketch that I'm working on myself, I tend to go back on and start filling out like dependent destroy, or like if I write a concern, sometimes I don't do, like if I need a little hello or whatever, and this is actually a concern, I might not write that out immediately, but then I tend to go back if I'm stuck on something, just write out some of the syntax because I know I'll need that anyway at one point. And then that little exercise just lets my brain think about something else, and just it's almost like a little bit meditative and going around like wiring things up a little bit. Yeah, cool, sweet. Anything else wants to say? If anybody wants to say anything or put it in chat or something. Cool, thanks, Dennis. Yeah. Effects Nate. Sweet. Yeah, and we'll post a recording when it's kind of available. Probably available, like I might post it tomorrow or something like it. We'll see, but put it up on YouTube and everything. Cool. Well, I hope this was useful to everybody. Or Jeremy, do you want to say anything? Will we wrap up, or anything last thoughts? Or just like
No, I
close
think you
it?
did. Yeah, you did a good summary. Yeah, that's great.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Well, we'll announce it on like Bastions, whatever. We end up doing another one of these or whatever. I don't have a necessary place. YouTube channel. Yep, let's do that. Where do I find my YouTube channel? Hold on, wait, I put it in chat earlier. Let's see. Let's say there. Hopefully we get more sessions. That we'll see about that. See, but the technique is I feel like with this session we've done today, we've shown two different examples, and then the one we did with the Spotify one that's also on YouTube. I posted a link earlier. Let me find that. It gives you a pretty good sense of how, and some of these things are dependent to what particular example you're working on, which is why it's great to see different versions of it. But
Yeah.
But where was the YouTube link? I had it somewhere. I'm gonna find it on social media. Hold on. Let's see before we wrap up. Not there. Was it here? Maybe here. Here. Yep. Copy the link. Oh, you had it there. Okay, cool. Yep, that's the one. Cool. Yeah, it's just social GitHub. We can do that too. I'm CaspTH pretty much everywhere. Social. And then the same thing on GitHub. Oh no! Wait, I sent it to you, Jeremy. For some reason,
Oh
I
yeah,
sent to like
that's fine.
to just post to you privately. But yeah, I'm here, and I'm also here. Yeah, I forget to write out the. Cool. Sweet. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
if people
Well,
try this out, I'm guessing both of us would really enjoy hearing the feedback on how it goes and what you picked up
yeah,
from it.
and speaking of more sessions, if anybody's interested in, I have a thing that they might be able to work on or want to see, we could probably do one of those too. Yeah, something like that. Cool. See, when's the message recording on? Is there any way to send people the chat transcript or something? I'm wondering. I'll figure that out. But I just want to give people a chance to, if they want to find the links and everything before we just hang up. But other than that, I think we're kind of wrapping up. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Let's stop the screen share here. But really cool. I hope it's useful. I know it's pretty different from what I've seen out there before, not the usual law demeanor blog posts or whatever, or the usual thing. So or here's a red green refactor, which again is cool. It's just like it's just more a little bit different. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. See you around, everybody, I guess, online. Yeah, let us know if you use it, if you like it, if you hit stumbling blocks, we can see what we can do there potentially. Yeah, and it's not replacing anything. It's just another tool in your toolbox that's useful sometimes. So caveats abound and all that stuff. Okay. See you around, everybody. Have a great time, evening, day, afternoon, morning, whatever. Okay,
Thanks,
I'm
everybody.
hanging up, but like, see ya.
Thanks again. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks so
Cheers.
much. See ya.
Thanks.
Ending here. What do I do it? End meeting for all. Here we go. Bye. Bye. Or actually, Jeremy, do you want to hang around? Should we
Sure.
do like a wrap up thing or something? Like
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah,
two
we
of
can
us.
do that.
Let's see.
Sure.
I don't know if
Mhm.
cool. Right. I guess I just got it in like push people up. Okay. Everybody see that. I just- Oh, no, wait, that's not what I'm doing. Okay, well, I don't really have anything more to say essentially. I just wonder if we should do like a wrap up thing or something
Mhm.
ourselves. Talk about
Yeah.
how it went, but there's still people in here, so let's see. Cool. Well, we're kind of done, everybody, so there isn't really more to see. The last part bit was just for me and Jerry. If you still need to copy links, that's fine, but other than that, I think it's just kind of done. Cool.
You want to stop the record?
Oh yeah, okay, let's do that too.